Sekeres and Price for Monday, April 15th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. If you're heading to a game or a event downtown, make it a staycation, call the Wall, ask for the Sekeres and Price rate. Some blackout dates apply, 604-331-1000. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Great Sass Hitting Switches, conducting things. Big show coming up, all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Kia in Surrey has the 2024 Kia Sportage with financing at 5.49%. Get behind the wheel of the new Sportage now, up to 60 months, and on all trims, 5.49%. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today asking you, are you confident in the Canucks heading into the playoffs? Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres and Price on Twitter or YouTube. I voted yes. It's a tepid yes. I would feel much better about the yes if Thatcher Demko is terrific in his return this week. I would also feel a lot better about the yes if we see this week what we saw Saturday, and that is goals coming from the depth scorers. Not to mention, and running out of opportunities here, just a little bit more consistency and organization on the special team side, particularly the power play. But I voted yes. And in part, I voted yes because it now looks pretty good that it's going to be the Nashville Predators and Vancouver Canucks in the first round. Other possibilities are out there, but really, if the Oilers lose tonight to San Jose, and very little chance of that, but if Nashville, who somehow finishes their regular season tonight, Monday, against Pittsburgh, if they get a single point, they're locked into the first wild card. And as we know, it would now take something out of the ordinary for the Edmonton Oilers to pass Vancouver after Saturday's results. So put it all together, I voted yes. Tepidly.
Yeah, and you know, I think that the fact they've had some success now, I think even dropping these final two games of the season, I don't think is enough to erase what they did last week. I mean, they had a big week last week. They took 5 of 6 points.
Absolutely. And they got wins against playoff teams, which, of course, they had been seeking for a month since Thatcher Demko had left with injury, that knee injury. So
11 wins in the final quarter of the season. So we're going to throw out these two this week because it doesn't fit the math nicely. In the 80 games, the final quarter of the season, 11 wins, 5 of them against playoff teams. So almost half of them. And good playoff teams for that matter. So it's,
well, yeah, I mean, you're two division foes that everyone's so worried about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and beat Winnipeg. I mean, there's some good wins in there. They started to erase some of that narrative, and they do have Colorado, of course, coming up on game number 82 as well. So, or Winnipeg, pardon me, coming up on game number 82. So there's still a chance to add to that total before the end of the season. So they've erased a lot of concerns, I think. And given that they're going to be with home ice advantage and facing, you would think, a team like the Preds in particular, and even the team like LA, season series notwithstanding, I mean, the Canucks are going to be the favorites. Yeah. And I think there's reason to be confident. Second round, all bets are off. You're going to face a juggernaut in the second round. But for the first round, yeah, I think you can be confident going into that series.
Really, all that's left to fear this week is Canuck luck, or impending doom, as Donnie calls it. Well, they have been so healthy all year long with all of their best players playing 82 games. And look, guys might be playing through things, playing 80 games. Elias Patterson, we wondered about him earlier in the season, but Miller, Hughes, Patterson, Besser, Roenick, Garland, those are their top 6 scorers, Blake. And all of them have an 80 beside their name.
I doubt the Sharks do the Canucks any favors tonight versus the Edmonton Oilers.
Although San Jose has locked in the best odds at Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah, so they can play without conscience.
So they can go win. Remember, we used to play this game. That's a big loss for the Canucks tonight. Had they won, they would have leapfrogged so-and-so and diminished their lottery odds by X%.
But that's why I think tomorrow is a must point for the Vancouver Canucks. Sort of just make sure you've sealed up the Pacific Division tomorrow night. And then, Matt, I don't care who's got what trophies on the line outside of Thatcher Demko. I mean, I would pull out all the stops to give rests.
Wow.
I would dress 7 defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
And have Hughes sit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'd probably sit JT Miller. And
I hear you. I don't think it's happening. I think Hughes is playing the final game at least at Rogers Arena tomorrow versus the Calgary.
He's playing
Flames.
that one. Yeah. No, I'm talking the last one, the road game. Don't even tell Hughes to get on the plane.
I understand, but I suspect they may feel like they want to put a punctuation mark on the Norris Trophy campaign.
You can't do that.
You can, and they might.
Well, I think we saw Connor McDavid assert his power perhaps on the weekend.
And the difference there is he's got a collection of hardware already.
But
so
60 minutes of hockey, swinging voters?
I'm with you.
The votes are in.
I'm with you. But I do wonder whether that's going to come into consideration. Incidentally, say those 6 top scorers have all played 80 games. Nils Höglander has played 78. And the 2 he missed were by choice, right? Healthy scratches.
Mm-hmm.
So their top 7 players
have been healthy, yeah.
Have been healthy all season. Top 7 scores have been healthy all season long. Let's get to our...
You hope the Flames tomorrow night don't try to prove themselves in any sort of way.
That's sort of what you're worried about against these non-playoff teams, right? Like
especially
wanting to go cowboy out there and show coach that I'm tough and I can take a run at guys and I'm going to...
And it's a rival franchise. I mean, there's no heat between them right now, but you just... Yeah.
Get to our top story. Victory against the Oil. Canucks complete the season sweep of Edmonton. They win all 4 hockey games, 2 of them behind Casey DeSmith, who makes 32 saves for the victory. Lafferty, Suter, Joshua, your goal scorers. They locked it down in the third. Only 2 high danger scoring chances against. And of course, all of this with the caveat, and it's a significant one, that Connor McDavid missed the game. It just sounds like Edmonton has shut down McDavid, knowing they're going to finish second in the Pacific Division.
Well, I think he's playing tonight.
And
it sounds like he's playing tonight.
Is he playing tonight?
Yeah, sounds like he's playing tonight.
San Jose?
Yeah. And that's why I asked you earlier before we got started here. I was like, when are those back-to-backs? I thought it'd be weird for him to start back-to-back, but the back-to-backs are Wednesday, Thursday. Now, that'll be interesting. Like, does Connor McDavid coming off injury need to play back-to-back nights at the end of the week? I bet you he sits one of those games.
You don't want to see him in the final game at Mullet Arena on Thursday?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. He could probably skip that trip as well.
Do you not think 5,000, if they get to 5,000, is befitting the world's best player? What's that going to look like Thursday, incidentally, especially if there's news in advance?
Well, good thing it's a small arena, because if that was a 16,000 seat arena and all this news had gone down, like if they're still in Glendale playing this game, there'd be 1,200 people tops at this game. There still might be 1,200, but it'll look a little bit better.
Coach Rick Tocchet, he talked about, and look, we're going to hear from him here in a second. The Canucks have been a very good defensive team. Let's remember, when Thatcher Demko left the lineup, this team made a point of being airtight, and were pretty damn good for a month there, playing in front of Casey DeSmith and Arturs Shilovs. Let's hear from Coach, who loved the way how they locked it down in period 3.
Well, I think all year we've been kind of our mode of being able to protect leads, grind it out. So that's one thing that the guys hang their hat on. And honestly, the minutes were good. I think we played all 4 lines. We didn't overuse a lot of guys. I think that's the recipe for our team.
How about that? No forward played less than 10 minutes and 22 seconds. That was Vasily Podkolzin. So no forward in single digits. And no defenseman played more than 21:55. That was Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. In a big game against a suitable opponent. That's one thing to do that against an Arizona Coyotes team or Anaheim Ducks or something. But against the Oilers in a meaningful game, say what you want about the meaning of that game, but it is a meaningful game. The fact that he was able to roll lines and pairings and keep everybody involved, it's a tidy effort. And the fact that they are learning here at the end of the season how to hold leads and how to play conservatively. Like, they gave the Oilers some possession time. The puck was on Oilers sticks quite a bit in that game. But boy, did they keep them to the outside. They kept bodies in front. And they frustrate. Like, I don't know. I heard Zach Hyman's name like twice in the entire game. And Draisaitl what made his presence felt to some degree, but I don't know. I don't feel like they dodged a whole lot of Draisaitl bullets all the same. Like, it was pretty tidy.
No, it was very tidy. It was incredibly tidy. In fact, first of all, boy, did that game move.
Yeah.
So few whistles. Secondly, I was expecting a last rush from the Edmonton Oilers. I thought there would be, so when the third period started, she looked at me and went, let me guess, they're going to lose 3-2 in overtime. I'm like, it sort of does have that feel a little bit, right? That, you've got an opponent that's down. You haven't put them out. You've let them linger on home ice into the third, and yet the game just sort of petered out.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. And that's the way that it's supposed to look when you are a better team. Like, you're just supposed to frustrate the opposition until the clock expires. Yeah. An early empty net goal just kind of nips all that in the bud. It was great.
Yeah. Hey, just before we go any further, Grady, I understand there's a issue on the Twitter side of things with today's show. You can click the link and get the video. Is that it for those who are listening?
Yeah, it's just the video preview isn't showing up. So,
okay.
Elon Musk's Twitter strikes again.
All right.
X.
Okay. We'll deal with it. So, Vancouver clinches the division with any Oilers loss to San Jose. Nashville clinches the first wild card with a single point against Pittsburgh. Here's the thing. If both these things happen, and again, unlikely that San Jose beats Edmonton, but if both these things happen and the Predators know they're playing the Vancouver Canucks, they're here on a plane, Wednesday?
Yep.
Getting time adjusted?
Certainly.
Practice at home, fly in Wednesday, and then have almost a mini training camp before what could be at earliest a Saturday start. And apparently the Edmonton Oilers have a booking conflict Saturday, so they can't play a home game Saturday. You would like to think that because all these Eastern teams finish up on Wednesday, that they will take care of the broadcaster's appetite for Saturday hockey, but of course there would not be a late game, a 7 p.m. Pacific game, or at least not involving the Canadian clubs. One would hope that's the case. Nashville somehow finishes Monday, knows they're playing the Canucks, and are able to get here, lie in wait for several days while Vancouver goes out to Winnipeg, plays Thursday, gets back in the early morning hours, and then has to turn around and play Saturday. You would hope that's not the case.
I don't think Nashville's here on Wednesday, but Thursday or Friday, certainly ahead of us.
No, but that would be available to them, Blake. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but they're not going to find out probably until tomorrow night. I don't think they
probably
make those plans that quickly. But even if they arrive on Thursday for a Sunday or Monday game, that's a lot of prep time. You're feeling pretty good about eliminating a lot of the normal rigors of the road.
Yep. And of course, we could have had further clarification had Vegas lost on Sunday, but down 3-0 going into the third period against the Colorado Avalanche. They come storming back. They win the game in overtime. And the Avalanche can't feel great about the way they're finishing this season, limping to the line Colorado is. You mentioned the Canucks record by 20 game segments, the neat math here before we play the final two. 11-6-3 for 25 points. And the thing that's astonishing is that is only 3 points worse than the second 20 game slate of the season, 13-5-2, which was their best. Because really, we've talked about it since the All-Star break. There's been a whole lot of meh in the Vancouver Canucks game. And yet the record reflects a team that is right up there battling for division conference and league supremacy.
The losses don't change. So in the 4 quarterly segments, the loss column is either a 6 or a 5 in all 4 quarters. So there's a couple of wins that turn to OTLs for the Canucks here in the final quarter, But that's the only difference between that and the electric start that we were ballyhooing in the fall. That's the only difference. If those two games sweep over, it's the same. So it's amazing. It shows you where the bar has been pushed for this team and what you expected to see out of it. Now, if you go deeper, you can certainly critique the caliber of win over the caliber of opponent and all that in the final quarter,
and rightfully so.
But
I think,
but more so than that, though, it was my internal temperature, Matt, of just losses. Like, it just felt like they lost more in the final quarter. They didn't.
No,
they didn't.
They lost the bigger until last week. They lost most of the bigger games, so they had that one good road trip. They beat Boston and Carolina early after the All-Star break. One or both of those could have actually been in the third quarter of the schedule, but they took care of business against the lesser lights of the National Hockey League. I think really that's the mark of a good team. Win the games that you should. Yeah, of course you're going to lose games from time to time.
They're good teams.
Yeah, or even a stretch of games.
Yeah,
I think it was 5 or 6 in a row that they lost against playoff teams. Hey, fair enough. Those are good teams. You can lose some of those.
They have agency. They also want to win those games.
Right, exactly. And if any of, we're going to the playoffs. We banked a lot of points crept in. It's also natural. Coaches fight that. That's also natural. Going to happen.
Yeah.
I think everybody, fans, players, media alike, all think, damn, season's so bloody long.
Honestly, I think all it boils down to is this team destroyed people early in the opening half of the season, certainly the opening quarter of the season. You were down 3-0 after the first period. Canucks had a 2-goal lead going into the third, like every night it seemed, and that stopped. But the winning, the points, really didn't. And so I think it was that sea change on how they won game that sort of affected that licked finger in the air test of how the Canucks were doing. It felt like they were doing worse, but results are results.
Well, the J Fresh hockey tweet, did you see that?
No.
In the second half of the season, the Vancouver Canucks had a PDO of 100.3, 17th in the NHL. Their PDO did, in fact, ultimately regress towards the mean.
Yeah.
We knew they weren't the outlier they showed in the early going. We knew they weren't a team that could put comparatively so few shots on net, get so few rush chances, and continue filling up nets as they did.
Right.
I mean, it was staggering early in the season how much they were scoring goals on low shot totals with not exactly a up and down, fast and furious pace.
Yeah, every decent shot they took seemed to go in.
It went in. And conversely, the flip side was true early in the season, if you remember as well, Blake, that teams were getting a good number of high danger scoring chances. Thatcher was just barring the door.
And
not
now,
today, not
and
on
now the opposition struggles to get to 25 shots on a nightly basis for this. So everything
struggles
has
to get the high danger chances.
Yeah, everything has changed.
We saw the transformation over the course of the season.
Yeah,
they went from a high scoring team early that overwhelmed teams with offense and oftentimes with the first goal, 51 times so far out of 80 with the first goal, to a team that didn't give up much. It was the damnedest thing. Because through the first 30, 40 games, you asked, what's the Canucks' strength? Oh, look at all the goals, scoring, power play. Amazing. And the second half of the season, what's the Canucks' strength? The defense, what they don't give up.
No.
The way they play in front of that goaltender.
And credit the coaching staff for seeing, okay, this is not sustainable. We're not going to win the playoffs playing like this, but we've got guys here that we can mold into a more playoff-y team. And I'm not predicting the Stanley Cup parade here. I'm just saying, despite the fact there are deficiencies in this roster, I think this coaching staff has put most of these players in positions to succeed to the most part. Like they're going to get the most out of this team. If that's a second round exit, that's a second round exit. And I think from my seat, I would understand a second round exit.
Yep, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Jay Fresh followed up. To be honest, I think the Canucks' insane early PDO runs probably got the team to buy fully into the system and level up. The first half of the season, they had a 48% shot share and 50% expected goal share at 5-on-5. In the second half, it was 53 and 54.
Yeah.
Yep.
Buy-in is big.
All of it computes. Yeah.
We can win. We could actually be good this season.
Well, thank God some of those goals went in that when they did early in the season, right?
Yeah.
Because confidence matters too. Tuesday is the final regular season home game at Rogers Arena. Fan appreciation night, if you will. We used to mark different things about this game than we will. But team awards night. So, are we unanimous team MVP, best defenseman, Quinn Hughes? Moving right along. Most exciting player. Are we going anywhere outside of Quinn Hughes?
No.
Grady?
Both for
Okay.
editorial reasons, and I just think that people will vote that.
Which brings us to unsung hero. Did a welcome out on this a couple weeks back. If we're truly talking unsung, because everybody in this market is sung to some degree, give me Noah Juleson. If we're just throwing the All-Stars out and saying everybody outside of the All-Stars,
which is how it's panned out in recent years,
give me Dakota Joshua. Although there are a number of good candidates there, including the goalie who played Saturday, including Connor Garland.
I think Höglander getting to 20 goals. I'll go there. DeSmith's got a chance.
There's a lot of good candidates.
Arshdeep Baines, for heaven's sakes.
Grady, unsung?
Oh, well, I take issue with the word unsung because
everybody
how many
takes
actually
issue.
people are
Everybody
unsung
takes
in this
issue.
market?
Least sung hero.
Undersung.
Dakota Joshua.
Yeah, thank you.
It's like he was voting for you. You took so much pride in that.
He's a good boy. Canucks can get to 50 victories. And of course, we can say hello and farewell. We never got the chance to Andrei Kuzmenko and his bananas. And in fact, he has gone bananas of late.
What a weekend.
Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Hat trick on a weekend. 5 goals in his last 4 games. 12 points in his last 7. 14 goals, 24 points in 27 games with the Calgary Flames.
Got a 40-goal pace, I believe.
He's close to the player we saw last year.
Yeah.
In Calgary.
In a very loose system right now because
that's how he scored.
But I mean, Calgary not trying to lock anything down, so
played differently than Tocchet plays anyways.
Yeah.
So he's 45 points in 70 games this season. So he's going to wind up looking okay, all things considered. When Canucks traded him, was looking pretty rough. Lindholm, on the other hand, who gets on the score sheet Saturday against the Oilers, 10 points in 24 games with Vancouver. He's got 42 points on the season in 73 games. So he's not only way behind Kuzmenko after the trade in terms of production for your new team, he's behind Kuzmenko on the season as well now. And look, nobody is saying that Kuzmenko would have done this in Vancouver. Of course not. Not with this system, not with the leash that Rick Tocchet wasn't giving him. But, some of us said at the time, there's still an NHL player there who can go on and have success.
And there was an uptick that was probably likely if that trade never happens, he probably has a better pace in that final third of the season with the Canucks than he did in the first 2/3. I mean, I would think there'd be regression upwards, for him there. So I think we predicted this. Many said he's probably going to have a lot more success in Calgary than he did here based on expectations and usage. And we've seen that.
And you're going to want to listen to J. Patter Gaffar. They've got rink-wide Vancouver Tuesday night after the Flames and Canucks moments thereafter. Check them on out. They're live now. They're on video as well. Let's hear from Coach Tocchet because, look, Lindholm has come back and he's played reasonably well. I mean, he's not high flying. He's not high scoring or anything like that. But we always knew he's a good defensive player. He's shown that. I was kind of wondering whether or not he would be slow to come back because of the injury and because, let's face it, he wasn't exactly going when he left the lineup. But I think you've gotten some pretty good performances out of Lindholm since he's returned to the lineup.
He's playing really hard.
Like well, that's it.
Stiffly,
that's what I mean.
You know,
like he's playing a playoff brand of hockey, frankly.
Yeah.
Let's hear from head coach Rick Tocchet on Elias Lindholm.
I like the way our lines are set up. I know, there's different options. For me, it's more depth that way. I thought Lindy was really good tonight. Since he's been back, it really balances our lines. Kind of gets us a little different matches here and there. So that's a big plus for us getting Lindy out there.
Balances the lines and gets them different matchups. And I think this is what Tocchet and the coaching staff is relying on once we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. That our bottom six, our support, secondary scoring, whatever you want to call it, hasn't exactly been great in the second half of the season. We have had guys go through horrific droughts, including Ilya Mikheyev, whose drought continues. Great to see Suter back on the score sheet with a goal, but he had a long stretch as well. Guys like Lafferty, who scored a bunch of goals early in the season, right? He gets back on the score sheet. I think this coaching staff is looking at it and going, all right, Elias Lindholm is the center. Let's stop trying to put square pegs into round holes and load up a top six with him in it. And let's take advantage of the fact that most teams we're going to play, particularly in the first round, are not going to be as strong at center ice when the third line comes over the boards. And maybe in a playoff environment where there's not a lot of space, where there's not a lot of time, we're going to get more scoring opportunities and more goals from that third line, regardless who is on Elias Lindholm's wing, because that's the sort of style they play, and we're going to have a talent advantage.
Well, in the other direction, in the road games in the playoffs, if they get caught without Miller or Patterson's line up against the other team's top six forwards, top two lines,
you're still okay with
you're
that.
still pretty okay. The chances of getting caught with Bluger's a lot cut down. But if you get caught with Lindholm, is it really being caught? He's a pretty defensive-minded center and very capable wingers in Joshua and Garland, which, by the way, today's practice coming to a conclusion. And it's the same setup, basically. It's still Lindholm.
Lindholm with the two Americans, Garland and Joshua.
Yeah. So it's same there. PDG and Oman were sitting.
They were, if not productive, so good by the analytics with Bluger in the middle of that line, and had their flashes as well. And at one point, we were calling them the best third line in the league. But this is appropriate to put Lindholm with them, right?
Yeah.
You get to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Look, Teddy Bluger, you were a soldier for us all year, played exceedingly well. But of course, he's been on the goal drought list too, right? I would feel better about Lindholm converting some of the opportunities that Bluger has been afforded by the great spade work of his two wingers, Garland and Joshua, who, let's face it, have created a lot of chances, are both terrific in short areas, terrific puck battlers. And, Joshua, don't sleep on the hands. They've been very good this year as well, particularly in tight areas. The last time, did you see this? Last time the Vancouver Canucks hosted a Stanley Cup playoff game at Rogers Arena 9 years ago today.
Oh, really?
Game 1 against the Calgary Flames. You remember the game?
I don't remember the game nuances too much, no.
1-0 lead going into the third period. Then they connect.
Yeah.
Cowboy Chris Russell scores with 30 seconds remaining in regulation to steal a victory for the Flames. They would go on, of course, to win the series. Russell's goal assisted by 18-year-old Sam Bennett.
Oh, 18-year-old. The best of the Bennetts. Honestly.
So it's such an old reference we should explain.
Should we?
Well,
Do we need to? I think people remember.
really?
Yeah.
9 years ago, guys.
Yeah.
9 years ago.
That joke persisted on social media
Sure,
for
fair
a
enough.
decade to follow.
Anyways, he was their first round pick and 18 years old. And it seemed like every time a broadcaster noted him in that series, they made sure to put his
His
age.
first name was 18-year-old. His last name was Sam Bennett. Had to be full.
It was that and Michael Furland running around like his head was chopped
I
off.
remember
Furland was
hitting
so good.
everything in sight.
So good, he necessitated a 4-year deal.
Poor Kevin. Yeah, exactly. The
Mm.
Canucks gave him a 4-year deal in part because of what he did to Kevin BX in that series.
Yeah.
Furland.
Yes. BX are referring to him as Furland.
Furland.
Who is that guy?
Furkland was flattening BX at every, and as I recall, Kevin was fighting through something he could barely move, right?
And getting on. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to get back to with regards to talking about balancing the lines, getting them to different matchups, and the first clip that we heard from him about the recipe for the team not to overuse guys, no forward playing less than 10 minutes, 22 seconds, no defenseman cresting 22 minutes against Edmonton. I hear what he's saying, and in a perfect world, roll 4 lines. Do you remember that 2015 series and how slavish Willie D was to rolling the 4 damn lines even when they needed goals?
Yeah.
About how many minutes plumbers were getting, and you're sitting there going, how the hell does he not know to shorten the bench? Like 33 and 22, please? Is there any chance of this coaching staff not reading the room and not reading the ice time level? Like, because for me, I understand that Nashville could be a long way and a lot of travel. I understand it's been a long season with your best players playing 80 to 82 games, but you have to lean on your horses when opportunities present themselves. If you're down 2-0 early in a game, I don't want to see that 4th line very often.
We've already seen Ritaka do this, though. We've seen him throw a lot of line in the middle of a game. I think they've got another option there with Lindholm now. No, I think you can.
I would hope not.
Shake things up.
I would hope not, because it's been a long time, Blake, since we've talked about the coaching strategies in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You cannot coach these games like they're regular season games. You ain't got time to bleed.
I think you got the opportunity now with Garland going as well as Garland's going. You can create 2 super lines for a short 5-minute burst in a period. I think you'd go Lindholm up with Besser and Miller.
Right.
I put Lindholm down the Miller with Miller and Besser on the wings, and then you do Paterson with Garland and Höglander.
Yep. And that way you leave Garland on the right side too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you run
JT playing left wing, which is where he played on a lot of line setup.
Like there's a 3-minute burst there where you roll
wasn't.
those 2 lines over the boards and try to give yourself a jolt.
I think so. I think so. Now, do it on the defensive side of things. Hughes Fronik, and
you got to feel it out. I think you have to.
Who's going that night?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think you might go full Storks.
Probably not Cole, right? Because that's the lefty playing on the right side.
Given how Zadorov
between Zadorov, Susi, and
Myers is playing. Myers is playing better hockey right now, so I think he gets his spot there, and then whoever is looking better. And right now, it's Zadorov over Susi for me. So we'll see.
No, I think you're absolutely right. That's how you have to do it, but with an eye to who's going that night, and I think you also have room for. You're not getting much out of Höglander. You're not getting. You have other options there too, Blake. Joshua's going, move him up.
Yeah, for sure. And then you also have the ace up your sleeve. You put the 3rd line back together.
Bluger with the
just because chemistry, just because it works. So I think you've got that,
which is kind of our longhand way of saying whatever you see this week in terms of line combinations.
Yeah, don't be married to it. Yes.
I can't imagine a coaching staff in a playoff game gets married to any of these situations.
Yeah, I don't think.
I know we saw it with Willie 9 years ago.
Willie was
for some reason.
Yeah,
but And I don't, to be fair, I don't quite remember it 4 years ago as much in the bubble
with Travis.
with Travis. I don't, but I don't I don't remember the specifics of how Travis managed those playoff series as well as I remember.
I don't remember carrying
Will.
much either.
Well, I think there was a little bit of care
Yeah.
as well. It was August, and boy, was it nice outside. But also, I don't think Travis kicked it like Willie kicked it.
Yeah. No,
I would have remembered that.
I think that's
there
fair.
might have been a thing here or there to criticize about the way they handled those series. And let's face it, the wins over Minnesota and St. Louis, there wasn't much to nitpick. And the Vegas one, they did very, very well just to be in that series, as long as they were in that series, particularly after the injury to Jacob Markstrom with Demko coming in and playing so damn well. So, yes, but all of that stuff, your playoff primer here, all of that comes back into the discussion. Who you have out for a face-off with 90 seconds left, right? Who's the sixth attacker if you need a sixth attacker? Who's playing on the 5-on-3 if you're down 2 guys? Like, all of that gets magnified.
This is what we've been missing for years.
Oh,
and,
so much, and it's so much fun.
Oh,
I absolutely love the discussion around the team, around the strategy. And in some cases, it's period to period.
I used to love people saying, Price, why are you always nitpicking the third? Like, in the playoffs of 09 through 11. Why are you picking apart like the third and the fourth line? Because the Sedin twins are fine.
Right.
There's really not much to say there.
You listen to J-Pad on Rink Wide, more often than not, you're not getting a show where they're spending a ton of time on the fourth line unless the fourth line does great. And the reason being is that over the course of 82 games, you're going to have guys on, you're going to have guys off. The fourth line is not making the difference one way or the other many nights. In the Stanley Cup playoffs, those small margins, those little details jump out and matter more.
Well, particularly for
your
teams.
12th forward matters more. Your 6th defenseman matters more.
Particularly for teams that have expectation. And I don't mean our current state of affairs here in Vancouver. But teams like this time next year, if the Canucks are going in as a 1 or 2 seed in their division next year, there's going to be more pressure on the Canucks next year because you will have seen some things already. What are you going to do now, Canucks?
Right.
But that's also the fun part is, like you can expect a certain level out of your stars. You expect, and you'll probably get a certain level out of your stars. But how are the other guys going to affect the price of bread?
And if you don't get a certain level out of your stars, damn well the next phrase is coming out somewhere. Our best players need to be.
That's true.
Our best players.
Yeah, that'll be said once for sure.
Is that the gold standard playoff cliche? Is there a playoff cliche that is of higher order than our best players have to be our players?
And yet, I don't mind that saying because it's
absolutely
an emphatic truth
in a lot of cases.
In a small sample size, such as playoff series, in whatever sport you're talking about,
finish our checks, maybe
you have to rely on your star players.
Good dumps in the corners.
That's just funny.
Playoffs are near, and we have an army. Nation Gear, ready to gear you up for Vancouver's playoff run. Rep your favorite team as they battle for the cup. Shop the exclusive We Have an Army playoff tee and more at nationgear.ca. Let's get into today's menu, brought to you by our friends at Greta, 50 West Cordova. And a programming note here, we are moving the watch party event we had on Thursday scheduled for Greta for the playoffs, and we'll have more information about when we'll be gathering for another fantastic time and watch party at Greta. But for the time being, hey, any game day is a great day to be at Greta Bar YVR. Join the crew, watch your favorite team. Great food, great fun. The arcade, of course. Check it all out. 50 West Cordova, downtown. We're talking to John first or Jeff first, Grady?
John
Shannon's going to join us. State of the end, a little nugget about how John was one of the reasons behind Towel Power. a tradition that has endured with the Vancouver Canucks in the Stanley Cup playoffs. J-Pat going to join us as well after the big weekend. Look forward to the week. And we'll have a golf report after the 2024 Masters and a runaway victory for Scotty Scheffler.
Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner-operator? Do you have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com. Joined now by the former executive producer, Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of Bob McCowan podcast. Mr. John Shannon joins us after the Canucks beat the Oilers on Saturday. John, how are you?
I'm doing well, boys. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you. So in the last week, the Canucks have wins against Vegas and wins against the McDavid-less Oilers. We're asking, are they back to being themselves, John?
Who's in goal?
Oh,
That's it. And they're doing it without Thatcher Demko.
as of tomorrow, it'll be Thatcher Demko.
Well, there you go. Then the answer as of tomorrow is yes.
Mhm.
You know, and that's not a knock at Casey DeSmith, who has done yeoman work in the last couple of weeks. But I mean, I think that the difference between this team for the first 55 games was Thatcher Demko, and to have him back and have him healthy will make this team that much more confident. And will make them much more of an imposing figure on the playoff circuit. There's a lot of people, guys, I got to tell you, outside of the province that are saying the Canucks are done. And I don't believe it. I think that this team does have some good leadership. They do have some quality players. But now to have Demko back, I think puts them back on that really elite stage of NHL teams.
Why do you think that sentiment is there? Because it's been in parts of the Lower Mainland too. But what do you think's driving that? Just the fact that they were winning games 6-1 in the fall, and they're not doing that anymore because the wins, for the most part, are still there from quarter to quarter. There's not much difference in the Canucks record from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, if at all. Why do you think there is that sentiment? What do you think is the driving force there?
I do think that if you look since the All-Star break, Blake, they have been as close to 500 as they've have been so far this season. I also think that there's an intangible belief that the great fairy tale story of the Vancouver Canucks in 23-24 can't go on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where you look at it and say, well, they can't be this good all the time, and they don't have playoff experience. And look, they have a couple of injuries and they can't manage it. But you know what? You look at Quinn Hughes play consistently. We've talked every week about JT Miller. I mean, and I fully expect that Paterson will become a bigger factor too. And I think that that's an important part. Now that Lindholm is back playing as well, I think that this team will be close to being on all cylinders by the time the playoffs start on the weekend.
Canucks had as
the
Canucks had as many losses in this quarter, these 20 games, as they did in the first quarter.
Right.
The only thing that happened was they moved a couple of wins into the OTL column. So the difference, this is their worst quarter, this final 20 games, by 2 points over the third quarter, and the first quarter by 3 points over the second quarter, which was their best quarter. But the difference in quarter to quarter is a maximum of 3 points, which I think blows a lot of people away, including myself.
Yeah, it does. It is surprising. I think there's a real perception that this team has not been playing to what it was a factor for this club prior to the All-Star break. So and I think that there's a lot. There's also that narrative that I do think that there's a lot of people that just can't think that this team is that good. And
I think that's
and yet I think that they consistently disprove that when they get their backs against the wall.
We've seen these teams
Well,
do this, is that when you go worst to first, generally you're probably not as good as the first place designation is, that you've ridden some helium, you've had a healthy season like the Canucks. Maybe you're not quite as good as that. You're a much better team, but you're maybe not quite that lofty status. And I think that's what we're seeing too, is really nice turnaround season, but you're not a contender yet, right?
Oh, and I would challenge that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are a contender, and I think they are a contender, particularly with who's going to play goal in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That can change things. Yeah.
Well, a couple of things. Blake is right about the records. There has been a lot of wins against really bad teams in this final quarter, right? Like that is what has floated that record a little bit. If you dig a little deeper,
there's a guy in Port Moody yelling, "They lost to Arizona on Wednesday."
Yeah. Hey, they beat Vegas. They beat Edmonton in a couple of in the last week. And you're quite right. Other teams have lost to lesser foes. The other thing I wanted you to bring up with him is the CBC headline this morning about Edmonton and Toronto. Apparently Canada believes Edmonton and Toronto are the two teams most likely to end the cup drought.
Wow.
They are the third and fourth best teams in Canada after Vancouver and Winnipeg.
Thank God I don't work at the CBC anymore.
CTV. That was CTV.
CTV. You told me CBC.
No,
CTV. Anyways, well, thank goodness. By the way, thank goodness I don't work at CTV anymore.
Yeah. Who does though? Really? I mean, lights are turning off here.
And don't throw Global in there too, because I work there as well. So don't worry about it. If there's a network in our country, I was there at one point.
No, I just love the headline though, John. Leafs or Oilers? Hockey fans split. And there's no mention of the Canucks or Jets, who are the top two teams.
You know as well as I do, that's because of two people.
Yeah.
That's the two M's, right?
The superstars, yeah.
That's McDavid and Matthews. And there's and rightly so, there's a love affair with what Austin Matthews does on the ice and what Connor McDavid does on the ice. And last I checked, this was a team sport. And Connor's only playing, when he plays, Connor's only playing 22 to 23 minutes a night. And so what are you doing for the other 37 or 38? And that's what both the Jets and the Canucks have done better, I think, than most people realize.
Well, to bring this back to the Canucks, I think that's also contributing to the doubt, is that the Canucks superstars not named Hughes aren't exactly hitting on all cylinders right now. Maybe you could give some shine to Miller. But, Paterson and Besser aren't exactly shooting the lights out right now. And I think that has people doubting as well.
Yeah, I can see that. But, this is, if from a Canucks perspective, you do have to manage expectations. But I think expectations are that they have to go to the conference final, at least, the second round, if they get eliminated in the first round, I'm saying that there will be people inside the organization say we didn't take advantage of everything we should have. Second round, I think that's probably that's a pick 'em.
It's a solid par. Yeah.
Par. Yeah.
Yep.
But to get to the conference final and create some real buzz in BC would be viewed as a huge success for this hockey club.
I know you do some Oilers games, intermissions, panels, things like that. What's the deal with McDavid? What's going on there?
I just think he wants to be 100%, and I think the team wants about 100% when I don't know what the difference is between winning 4 Art Rosses versus 5. They're not going anywhere in the standings. They have home ice in the first round. The opponents are going to be, in no particular order, LA, Vegas, Vancouver through 2 rounds. So they can play anywhere. So the key thing is health. The key thing is, get rid of the nagging injuries. I might even want to suggest that Connor may not play another game in the regular season. I think, by the way, I think that's been considered.
Yeah.
Make him right. He's not going to catch Kucherov. He's not going to catch McKinnon. So don't worry about that kind of silverware. Just worry about the big silverware.
We saw the practice clips. He looks spectacular in practice. Like he's
He
doing
always
his, so like he's not so bad. And the fact that they didn't play him against the Canucks leads you to believe, John, they like winning the division just wasn't a priority for them. Like they just don't care. First round's the first round, and they'll just deal with whatever home ice advantage comes later when they have to. But they didn't care, did they?
Well, I truthfully, I think it was up to Connor. I think it was up to Connor, and Connor's focused on team success rather than individual success. And because we can sit here and talk about everything that he has done in his career, but he doesn't want to have that asterisk beside his name, never won the Stanley Cup.
Right.
And that's the difference between those types of players, is that there are guys that are out there for the personal accolades. There are guys that are out there for winning trophies. But this guy wants to win the Stanley Cup. He wants an Olympic gold medal in 2026, and he wants a Stanley Cup even before that.
And of course, hasn't even played in a conference final yet, right? Oh, sorry.
Well, they did. Yeah, they got
to one conference final and got destroyed by Colorado, swept in 4 games.
And only 1 year left of Leon Draisaitl. So the clock is ticking a tad on that.
And I mean, the consolation for Edmonton and Edmonton fans is that the last 2 times they've been eliminated in the playoffs, the other team went on to win the Stanley Cup. So but McDavid is focused on one thing, and that's winning Lord Stanley.
Yeah. From one Connor to another, Vancouver's Connor, well, Chicago's Connor, but he'll always be ours a little bit. Connor Bedard of North Van. I'm filling out my ballot this week. Are you voting on NHL awards this year, Shannon?
No.
Okay.
I haven't since 19. So
okay. Connor Bedard or Brock Faber? Who do you think's going to win Rookie of the Year?
Oh, Connor Bedard.
You think so?
Yeah. Just pure and simple, just because of name recognition. Yeah. No, I think name recognition and status and pressure. I mean, Brock Faber has had an outstanding season. Make no mistake about it. He's on the verge of being a great player. But no one has played under the spotlight in his first year in this league, not even Connor McDavid, I don't think, than Connor Bedard. Those first 3 weeks of Connor Bedard's traveling roadshow, the crap that he had to go through with the Corey Perry controversy, the measure of this guy's character alone, and him to be able to come back from his injury and still contribute and still have a fan base in Chicago electrified, to me, is well worth the ballot. To the point where I've never done this when I voted, but would you ever consider doing Bedard 1 and leaving 2 blank and putting Faber 3? I don't know. I just think that Connor Bedard, with everything.
I'm afraid of Frank Saravelli may yell at me if I do that.
Who cares? Who cares?
Wouldn't be the first time he yelled at me.
Wouldn't be the first time he's yelled at any of us. So I just think that everything is that Bedard has gone through from his 18th birthday on has been remarkable, and he deserves every piece of praise that the hockey world can give him.
Lastly, I think we talked about this last week, but you feel pretty good about a Vancouver-Nashville matchup?
I do. The frustration for me, if I'm a Canuck fan, is 2 time zones, long trips. When Edmonton and Vegas or Edmonton and LA are 2.5 hours, the Vancouver trips, I assume, close to 4 to Nashville. How much of a load will that take? It's going to tell you what, a Nashville Vancouver series is going to be a whale of a series. If it is, in fact, that series, it's going to be a tremendous, tremendous matchup. And it's going to be fun to watch. But
why do you say that? Why do you think it's going to be so tremendous?
Well, when you look at the great players on both teams, if you had to pick between Demko and Saros, it's a pick 'em. You have to pick between Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi, it's a pick 'em. If you give me JT Miller, I'll give you Philip Forsberg. there are, the both teams know how to play physical. Both teams know how to skate. I think that they both are coached by guys that are on the cutting edge of the game in so many ways and know how to not only be tactical, but know how to motivate. And Andrew Brunette and Rick Tocchet. It's a really, it's a first round heavyweight battle. And that's kind of cool. And two fan bases that want to be part of the solution for their team. The Nashville fans are great. The Canuck fans have proved in the second half of the season to be as active as any in the game. I'm really excited about watching it, and both teams will probably be behind closed doors, be rolling their eyes that, oh my God, we have to play Nashville, or oh my goodness, we're stuck with Vancouver. It's going to be a great series.
John, they'll never get to the point where they choose their own opponents in the playoffs like other leagues have chosen to go to. But what about choosing the format of the 7 games? What about choosing the current format versus 2-3-2 versus
we used to have that
3-3-1, where because that would give some strategy, some ownership to the division champions, to the upper end team. Why not give them some control here, and again give them something for their efforts of being the superior team in the regular season?
Well, I think that there's the traditional answer that says, well, you have to give every team at least 2 home games. So, and that's the real challenge, because it's not Nashville has played well enough to be first in their division, and they're not a division winner. Mm-hmm. And so why don't they deserve 2 home dates? Yeah,
because 3-3-1 is interesting to me. But okay, so then even just 2-3-2 versus the current would be.
Well, we had that, and it has gone to the board, and the board has rejected it a couple of times. I will tell you, there's ancient history now, but 1984 Edmonton Islanders, all the Oilers had to do, because that was a 2-3-2 series, all the Oilers had to do was win 1 game on Long Island, and they came home and won all 3, and that's why the Oilers won their first cup in 5 at Northlands Coliseum. And so, and that was a 2-3-2 series. And so I'm not sure you want to make those mistakes.
No, it's true. It's a little dangerous in that opening set.
And I think San Jose, Detroit, and Toronto, San Jose had a couple of those series too, 2-3-2s. And people, you don't want to go to a city and play 3 games and be in the same hotel room for 6 or 7 days. You don't. And that's because it's so much out of the realm of what hockey's all about. We don't play 3-game series like we do in baseball. So it's not perfect, but if the Canucks want, if you said we're going to give the higher seeded team the choice to go 2-3-2, I wouldn't have an objection. But buyer beware, man. Buyer beware.
Last question here, Shannon. And I think I know your answer.
Oh.
Should the Canucks stick with towel power?
I have a bias.
I know.
Because
you love Roger Nielsen, right?
Hey, listen, in 1982, I produced all those games. I went down to Butts Giroux's t-shirt shop in Gastown and bought 500 Hockey Night in Canada towels and gave out 500 Hockey Night in Canada towels. Steve Armitage was our host outside the Coliseum, and we gave out 500, and I felt a little bit more responsible for some of those towels waving in that building, that first game of the Chicago series at home after that. So yeah, I would keep it. I mean,
co-opted is the problem, right? It's sort of spread everywhere. It's not Vancouver's own anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, but there's always a place for the original, and imitation is the greatest form of flattery. Guys, the Winnipeg Whiteout in 1987 started after the famous Calgary Sea of Red in 1986. And neither in 86 the Flames didn't win the Stanley Cup, in 87 and no, never mind, the Jets haven't won anything. So
yeah, well,
with their whiteout.
It's true.
Well, thank you for the part you played in towel power,
indeed.
And we'll catch up next week.
I got heck from my bosses too. I didn't ask permission to buy the towels too.
Oh wow, you expensed them? How much were they?
But you know what? Back in those days with a nice big blue Hockey Night in Canada stick and puck logo, 500 towels, $500.
I figured Bacatao.
John will be on the plaza handing out towels again.
You'd find John at Rogers Arena this weekend by the Roger Nielsen statue, handing out towels. Thank you, sir. Until next week.
Yeah, the playoffs will be underway next week.
There we go. Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now. In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Joined now by Rink-Wide Vancouver's Jeff Patterson, our Canucks reporter, covered the 3-1 victory over Edmonton on Saturday. Good day, Jeff. How are we?
Yeah, good. Counting her down to the playoffs now, 2 to go. So you can sort of feel it in the air, but a little bit of business to do for the Canucks between now and the start of the postseason.
Although
it's the postseason preseason is how we've characterized it. Little test runs.
Let's ask you our poll question today. Are you confident in the Canucks heading into the playoffs?
There are still some issues and concerns, but in a salary cap world, every team's got their warts. Wins like Saturday, I think, have to sort of instill some confidence that they can get games like that done. And I get Connor McDavid wasn't playing the other night. And in a 2-1 game for most of the third period, you kind of figure that he would have been heard from at some point, but he wasn't there. And the Canucks did what they had to do. So, defensively, really, since the All-Star break, they've been lights out good. There have been a few blips along the way. If you could tell me that guys like Pia Suter and Sam Lafferty were going to contribute offense with even some degree of regularity, that would change the conversation for me. So it was nice to see those guys rise up on a night when the Stars really didn't have it and didn't look all that engaged, quite frankly. Not that they hurt the Vancouver Canucks, although JT took that early penalty that put the back of their heels right out of the gate. But nice to see that, this team can get it done with some of the lesser lights stepping up and remembering where that net is and how to find it.
Great first period.
Where are you on their specialty teams at this stage, Jeff?
They got through the Edmonton game without giving up anything on the penalty kill, so a step in the right direction there. First power play the other night was dreadful. It wasn't a full 2 minutes because there was some overlap, but they couldn't even get in the zone and set up. The second one started to zip it around a little bit more. Got a few shots on goal, but I still am left wanting more from the top end guys when they're working on the power play. So 2 games to kind of iron that out, and then we'll see where the power play is once they start playing for keeps in game 1.
I've been noticing the Storks a lot more. Tyler Myers, Nikita Zadorov have been playing differently. Like, they are more active right now. Do you think that's conscious? Like, what am I watching there? Because and I like it, by the way. I think both of them played pretty well versus the Oilers.
No, I thought you were talking about following Elias Lindholm's wife on Instagram. I see that she's pregnant.
Yes,
the Stork's going to be delivering there. So, they don't have to worry about this. Isn't going to impact him in the playoffs. This is later in the calendar year. Yeah. You know what? I'm glad you brought those 2 guys up because the Hughes-Hronek pair, and not the fact that they were on the ice for the only Edmonton goal the other night. I just didn't think they had their best stuff.
Hughes tried to do way too much. Tried to hold on to the puck too much and got burned a couple of times. Obviously.
But the 2 guys that you mentioned, their 2 biggest defensemen, I thought stood out for the right reasons, and that's not always the case with those 2 guys. But Zadorov, obviously the history of the Battle of Alberta, seeing it from a slightly different perspective now across the Rockies, but had probably built up some hatred for the Edmonton Oilers over the years in his time in Calgary. And Tyler Myers, when he plays with it himself, can still be effective. Moves beautifully for a big man around the ice. It's been the decision-making and it's been those loud mistakes that have backfired on him in the hockey club. But I really do think that with Rick Tocchet's system, with Adam Foote and the work that he has put in individually with all these defensemen, they found a way to keep Tyler Myers sort of within himself for the most part. And I think in the second half of the season, he's been pretty good for the Vancouver Canucks. He's limited the mistakes. He still takes penalties. Took one the other night, obviously, when he got the stick into the face of Evander Kane. At this stage of his career, I think you kind of have to live with that. And that goes back to the question about special teams. As much as Tocchet's going to harp discipline in the playoffs, this group is still going to take some penalties. It's a question of, how do the referees call it? How often are they to the penalty box? But no, I mean, Tyler Myers makes the play that leads to the Pius Suter goal. I thought overall, again, no McDavid changes the dynamic of facing the Edmonton Oilers. It just does. But you can only play the team that's out there and the assembled cast that they've got. And so with that in mind, I thought, the depth defenders and really, look, go Casey DeSmith, the depth defenders, and get some secondary scoring. It was a good night for the lesser lights for the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday.
And thank you to Casey DeSmith for allowing us to skip the narrative of who the backup goaltender should be on a night-to-night basis. And God forbid Thatcher Demko should get injured in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if DeSmith gets blown out in that game, the fear that would be in Canucks fans' heads if Demko did get it? Now, if Demko has to skip a start, I don't know that the city burns because of it.
Yeah, I think you had to feel good for Casey DeSmith. I know his teammates and the coaching staff all did, and you saw the big hug from Thatcher Demko in his suit after the game down in the locker room area. Look, DeSmith's a popular guy. He was brought in because he knows that role, that he is the backup. And as we saw, when a backup is asked to play 6, 8, 10 games in a row, all of a sudden he's no longer the backup, and there's a reason he hasn't risen to a starter's role in the National Hockey League. He gets his role, he plays it well. He's provided the Canucks certainly adequate backup goaltending all season long. That said, there was some heat on him for the reasons you laid out there, and the fact he had lost his last 4 starts going into that game. And so, if he loses that one, then you're right. The question about the backup, this question about what to do with him beyond this year. And that's something for the summer, obviously. But he was good. He was good early. His first shot was Leon Draisaitl, a one-timer on the power play, and he kind of took that one right in the midsection. I thought his rebound control was exceptional the other night, and that hasn't always been the case, certainly of late, but just didn't leave a lot lying around. And the one goal that gets past him, a deflection that not a whole lot he could do there. And in fact, I wanted to see the replay because it looked maybe like the stick was right at that crossbar level. I didn't have an issue. I mean, it was a good goal and it's counted and all that kind of stuff. But, there were breakdowns before then. Not going to pin the goal on Casey DeSmith. But I just thought, that's a really thorough, professional performance from him for a guy that hadn't played in a week. And maybe the break did him well. I know he put in a lot of time with Ian Clark and practice and morning skates and those types of things. And that's all part of the work of and the job description as a backup goaltender. So good on him. He rose to the challenge. And I think once he got into it, the shots were 7-0 at one point in that first period. It could have been a different hockey game. And for the Oilers, they were playing back-to-back 3 and 4. And you kind of wondered if the Canucks could weather that storm. Might fatigue creep into the Oilers game a little bit later as the night went along. I really liked the way the Canucks played the third period. They limited Edmonton to just 2 high-danger chances. It was, a fairly low event, but that was just fine for the visiting team that was looking for a result. And the Canucks, and they've shown it all season, guys, so much better when they get the lead, and they've found ways to lock it down. And I thought the third period the other night against Edmonton looked a lot like the third period against Vegas earlier in the week where slow start for the Canucks, but once they got it to 4-3 and they got in front, then they were able to really lock it down. And I do think that's going to be their secret sauce come playoff time. But the big part there is getting that lead, getting out in front of your opponent, and then being able to put that into practice.
51 times, Jeff, now, is that right?
Yeah, 37 wins in those 51. So, most teams are better when they score first, but the Canucks have scored more first goals. They've opened the scoring more than any team in the National Hockey League. So, that's been a huge part of their success.
What about DeSmith for next year? Do you think you bring him back next year if he's willing to sign at a reasonable freight?
Yeah, I don't want to punt on the question here, but that really is a decision to be made in the offseason. I think they like what they've got in Artur Silovs. I think they see an opportunity. And we had this discussion at this time last year about, is Silovs ready to be the backup? Well, he's got another year of pro hockey under his belt. And I know that it hasn't been the greatest year for him down in Abbotsford, but he looked all right in the games that he played here in the National Hockey League. And even if the cap goes up, every dollar matters when you got to factor in the Paterson raise and whatever they do with Hronek and Dakota Joshua. So, it might be the cost-effective option for the Vancouver Canucks to make it Artie's time now. So I do think that they're going to have a decision on this one. I wouldn't have an issue if they brought back DeSmith at the right price point. Again, he's a popular guy. I think the teammates like him. The coaching staff certainly trusts him. They know what they've got there. But you can't get too loyal to the backup goaltender if it is a matter of dollars and cents.
The offense still not sputtering. but it's been a long time since we saw 5 spot on the Canucks record. In fact, you have to go all the way back to Winnipeg, I believe, on March the 9th, which seems unfathomable when we look at the first half of the Vancouver Canucks schedule. Is that conscious? Are they struggling, or are they just playing a different kind of hockey leading up into the playoffs where they know that 3 or 4 goals is all they're going to need?
Yeah, look, the first half of the season was fun, but you're not going to score 10 in the playoffs, I don't think, very often. And 8 on opening night against the Edmonton Oilers, that was great. But yeah, I do think it's a realization that this is who they have to be. This is more of who they are. Now, you want Elias Patterson to still take over a hockey game somewhere along the line here, and he's run out of time in the regular season. And JT Miller it's funny because Miller's on a 10-game point streak, but it doesn't feel like that to me. Got a second assist on the opening goal the other night, so he keeps the streak intact. But, I don't think he's been as dominant as we have seen him for long stretches this season. So 10 games with a point tells you that he's factoring into the offense, but I'm not sure that he's been a leader. And again, I didn't think that either of their top 2 lines the other night was terribly effective. But yeah, I think this is the understanding that they're going to get in these tight games come playoff time. And I think there's a comfort level and confidence that they can win them. But you're right. It would be nice to see this team. And so much of it tracks back to the power play, power play goal here or there. It's funny you mentioned that March 9th game against Winnipeg. That, of course, was the night that Thatcher Demko was last seen in a Canuck uniform in game action. But it was also really the last time that the Canucks got 2 goals from what I would consider depth guys, true depth guys. Pia Suter, who I know has played higher in the lineup, but with his struggles, I consider him depth scoring.
Sure.
Phil Giuseppe scored that night as well. So, that's part of it. Like, I think there's a couple of ways to come at that question that, the top end guys have been fairly consistent, but you'd like them to be a little more prominent sometimes. Power play, obviously. And then if you can get some contributions from the guys lower in the lineup, I mean, that obviously would be a formula that would work for the Vancouver Canucks here in the regular season, but certainly in the playoffs as well. But it is a little surprising to think how easy they made it look to get to 5 routinely in the first half of the season, and it's been more than a month now since they've put 5 up in a hockey game.
Are we safe with Quinn Hughes winning the scoring race for defensemen?
1 game left for the Avs.
Yeah. I mean, Cale Makar is certainly capable of having a big night, so I think you'd love to see Quinn Hughes have a big night on Tuesday against the Flames and take care of that and just to roll pretty much everything that's still up for grabs into one big ball for the Vancouver Canucks. And an effort from Hughes and a productive night from Hughes would go a long way to getting the points that they need or the point that they need to wrap up the division. So it kind of all goes hand in hand there. But Cale Makar isn't done just yet. Had a couple of, his 21st goal of the season. He also had an assist in the Colorado loss in Vegas on Sunday. So, look, the leading scorer among the defenders shouldn't be the determining factor for the Norris. But it would be a massive feather in the cap for Quinn Hughes to lead all defensemen. And it does feel like on some judges' scorecards still, some voters, just the hints that you're seeing out there in social spaces that Quinn Hughes needs to finish ahead of Makar. I don't know that Makar necessarily in their minds needs to finish ahead of Quinn Hughes, but I do think for some people and some voters, they need to see Quinn Hughes win that defenseman scoring derby. So it's not done yet. He's in good position because he's got 2 games. But I was still thinking, if that game in Winnipeg meant absolutely nothing, like would Quinn Hughes not benefit from putting his feet up on his couch at home and not even making the trip to Winnipeg? Something tells me that it's not going to be that simple, and we don't know what that game is going to mean to the Winnipeg Jets ultimately. So still a lot of moving parts here, but he's close, like the team, but still needs, I think, one more really solid effort to kind of salt it all away.
100% on the last point. You rest if you get a nice 4-1 win on Tuesday, Quinn Hughes gets 2 points, kind of ensures that Makar can't catch him. Yes, you rest Quinn Hughes. Absolutely, you do.
And we also know, barring something unforeseen, the Canucks are going to finish with a better record than the Avalanche as well, who have been awful here. My goodness, coming down the stretch. Yeah. Colorado, the losses you've endured, including Sunday to Vegas, blown a 3-goal period.
Just so bad.
3-goal third period lead. Marvelous stuff, Jeff. I'm done. Are you?
Yeah.
Maybe just set up the week ahead, Jeff, with Calgary, Winnipeg, and what's at stake postseason playoff, postseason seeding wise here.
Yeah, red hot Andrei Kuzmenko coming back to town. I know that it's kind of garbage time for the Flames, but old Kuzi there lighting it up. Had a hat trick the other night. Figured in a couple of the goals in the win against Arizona. It is awards night. Obviously, that holds a little bit of intrigue. I don't think there's much doubt about top defender. I think we can probably put that one to bed. But MVP.
Unsung hero, Jeff. Unsung hero. Who do you think's going to win unsung hero?
Man, I like that one. There are so many candidates, and I've gone back and forth on all sorts of guys, and I joked that Casey DeSmith made a last-ditch effort, although I don't know when voting closed. And, it's fan voting, too, and so it's a popularity contest. Like, I won't be surprised if Dakota Joshua or Connor Garland win it, and we've spoken about those guys at length. In a hockey market like this one, I always find the unsung hero a little tough to discern just because every story's been told 1,000 times. But, Casey DeSmith, certainly in the first half of the season, Ian Cole early in the season was a nice contributor to this hockey club. Lots of candidates, so there is some intrigue for me in that one. Most exciting player as well. I think you could make an argument for a handful of guys there. So awards night is always fun. The home finale, 50 wins is on the line. And who saw that coming? If they can get one more victory here over the course of these final two games. And then, I need to see what's at stake ultimately for the Winnipeg game on Thursday. It's the same night that the Oilers are in Colorado. Like, is this thing really going to go down to the wire? Hopefully not. The Canucks can just take care of business against Calgary and get it done there. So those are the two games. It's kind of funny the way the schedule works that the Canucks haven't been to Winnipeg, and in game 82, like that is their one and only trip in the regular season, at least, to Winnipeg to take on the Jets. So we'll see who goes, who stays behind, if they're able to rest anybody, how do they approach all of that. But it'll be all hands on deck, including the return of Thatcher Demko, we think, on Tuesday night against the Calgary Flames.
Believe it or not, award voting for the Canucks ended last Monday.
Oh, come on. It's just
No,
taking away 2 weeks.
I think it was like a 5 or 6 day window that you had to vote. It ended last Monday. Great stuff, Jeff. Thank you for this. We'll catch up later in the week.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.
Sekeres and Price from Wall Center, presentation Applewood Auto Group. You can text us 778-402-9680. It's time now for the Golf Report, brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club. More on them in a moment. But how about Scotty Scheffler? He wins the 2024 Masters by 4 strokes, his second green jacket. The most dominant player since the Tiger Woods era, I think you could now argue. Only a decentralized era, sadly. More on that. This from Jason Sobel. His wins at Bay Hill, the Players Championship, and now Augusta. He has made $12,600,000 plus on course in the last 35 days. Works out to $361,000 per day. And how about his caddy, Ted Scott, former Bubba Watson caddy? He has already made, on a 10% cut, $1.2 million this year. He would place 54th on the PGA Tour money list. The caddy.
Good gig if you can get it.
On how he was doing. I'll say this, though. And look, we've seen this at the Masters before. We saw this in 2019 with Tiger Woods, everybody hitting it in the water. Heck, the most famous win ever, maybe, at the Masters. Jack in 86 was helped out by Seve putting it in the water and Norman screwing up the 18th hole and others. But once again, another men's major comes and goes without much drama at the end.
Yeah.
In fact, you have to go back to the 2022 U.S. Open where Matthew Fitzpatrick outdueled Will Zalatoris on the 72nd hole to really find a men's major golf championship that has had a whole lot of unknowns and drama on the 72nd hole. So that's 6 in a row. And let me ask you this. Was this the tournament that we saw the live factor show up? Last year at the Masters, live players were really good. Koepka, Mickelson, Reed were all there. Of course, Koepka won the PGA Championship last year. Cameron Smith was a valiant in his defense of the Open Championship last year. He was there as much as anybody was there with Brian Harman with that a big victory. But did the live players look tournament sharp here this week?
Well, the best evidence of that is that they all started well. Not all of them, but a good core of them started well on Thursday. And as every day progressed, they got worse and worse.
Cam Smith and Bryson DeChambeau tied for 6th. Patrick Reed and Ricky Hatton tied for 9th. Of course, Hatton has just recently gone over to the Live Tour. That's something that I'm now worrying about. Will the Live player lose that tournament edge and mean even less sort of competition, less competition at the top, less drama at the end? Because really, these are the only times now that the best players in the world are getting together. And as mentioned, we've gone 6 in a row here now where you could turn the tournament off on the 15th or 16th hole and know who won.
The only guys in the last 15 years that have given me pause of, wow, that guy might be the most dominant golfer out there. The only guys that have sprung to mind beyond Scotty Scheffler are Brooks Koepka,
right,
and John Rahm. Both of them now at Live, and both of them reduced also rans this week.
Yeah.
So
I was buying Bryson DeChambeau there for a while, but he's also on Live.
This was amongst his better performances since going over to Live and coming back into a major. I thought John Rahm was a robot. Like I didn't know what bad John Rahm looked like. And he's not bad, but on the relative scale, I didn't think we'd see an average John Rahm when he was going.
And all his comments, Blake, are now tinged with what seems like regret that he made the move.
Yeah.
From a competitive point of view. He talked about that he lives in Scottsdale. He talked about having to drive past TPC Scottsdale around the time of the Waste Management Open and the pit in his stomach when he would do so, not being able to compete on that golf course. A guy who played collegiate golf at Arizona State as well. I just hope I'm willing to celebrate the era of a dominant player. Now, I like it when it's competitive at the top, but there's nothing like a dominant player to bring in casuals. I just wish it was happening week to week against the best fields in the world, and we're not getting that.
And I just wish that it was with a guy that was just a little more exciting.
He is not exactly Mr. Saturday Night, Mr. Entertainment.
And even
Mr.
the game,
Showbiz.
too, like he's a milquetoast personality, and not in a bad way at all. I don't mean that to be demeaning, but he's not electric personality. But even his game, unlike Tiger, who would have the penchant for the 100-foot bomb putt,
right,
who would be chucking darts 2 feet away.
Scheffler nearly hauled out on 9 yesterday, but I hear what you're saying.
But Scheffler routinely just pumps balls into the 8 to 12-foot range.
Right,
hits like a nice putt. Like I'm not taking like he's a good putter at times. Like it's
often misses the putt, but
on par fives, it's like
wow,
it's to 20 feet for eagle, misses the eagle putt, taps in for he's just clinical, but he's not exciting,
and I guess that's part of what I fear here, because he's not a great putter.
He's changing that though. I mean,
when he putts well, he is so much more dominant, than anybody else, so far ahead. And again, I wonder if that collection of 6 to 10 Live players that can be Live world-class players would change this equation.
Make him nervous more regularly.
Narrative, a different storyline, and of course, increased competition at the top week to week on the PGA Tour. Anyways, we shall see. Needless to say, he goes to the PGA Championship next month at Valhalla in Louisville, Kentucky, as the overwhelming favorite.
Well, I mean, a Grand Slam here is possible. It is. A Scheffler Slam. So.
Well, last guy to pull off any kind of slam, Tiger Woods. 16 over par, his worst finish ever relative to par at a 4-round professional tournament.
Nice of Adam Hadwin to ensure that he had company with an 82. Canadian hospitality.
He played with amateur Neil Shipley. If you got up early enough, you saw they were the featured group. How about Neil Shipley? You go to Augusta, you qualify for the weekend, you finish your Saturday round, and you're told, hey, kid, you're playing with Tiger Woods tomorrow.
And he was the ultimate everyman. Like he just was having a ball out there. And to Tiger's credit, to like the animated conversations that they seemingly having, Tiger gesticulating, like they were just shooting the shit while they were playing golf.
Really good on Tiger.
Yes,
because he recognized that it was this kid's thrill of a lifetime.
Yeah,
and I've followed Tiger at golf tournaments before. He is normally the locked in, laser focused, blinders on guy, but he certainly took his time with a young 20-year-old amateur. Then there was, did you hear about the question in the press conference
about
to
the
Shipley?
note? Yeah.
So Shipley gets asked in the press conference. A reporter said he saw Tiger Woods write something down and hand a note to Shipley on the 8th fairway. Shipley turned and looked at the green jacket, the Augusta press officer, dead silence, and then said he didn't. And the reporter said again, I thought I saw him hand you something. And Shipley said, no, that didn't happen. And then they ended the press conference. So a couple of things jump to mind. Of course, there are no cell phones at Augusta.
Yeah.
Was that Tiger writing his phone number down and giving it to Shipley, and the kid just being so scared to disclose anything Tiger Woods that he didn't cop to it?
It could be as innocent as that. We know Tiger has been guilty of a poor joke in the past with Justin Thomas. Some people suggested, was this another bad just inside joke that was inside the ropes? Is
this what Tiger does now? He comes prepared with a joke on a note and he gives it to somebody in his group.
I mean, who knows? To me, there's no scandal here.
Well,
I mean,
no, there's no scandal here. Hey, they were so far back. Was that a wager, like a close to I would hope Tiger showed better judgment.
Tiger's not doing that. Okay. But I mean, honestly, it's pretty immaterial. I don't suspect there's anything too scandalous.
That's today's golf report, brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. It's opening day, counting down to May 10th. A reminder to groups of 12 or more. Lock in those tee times for 2024. Those prime time weekend tees are filling up, and just for reaching out to reserve that tee time, you, the organizer, groups of 12 or more, you play for free. Whistler Golf Club takes care of the rest. You can tell us about your group at whistlergolf.com/groups. And of course, follow all the springtime preparations. The Bears are back at Whistler Golf.